Irashaimase! Hello and welcome to Fataris' Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fataris. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this week we have Hyper-5, a cinematic side-scroller. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. From developer Hyper Production and publisher East Asia Soft, Hyper-5 released to PC in January of 2022. Now in April of 2023, it's available on all current major platforms, and we'll be looking at the Nintendo Switch release today. So this title is one that I've got mixed feelings on. Overall, the simplest way I can describe my feelings on it, it just kind of comes across as clunky. But however, there is some great However, there is some great weapon customizability here, so that's something in its favor. That said, if you're interested in it, there is a demo available on PC, so you can check that out. But let's dive into the game and you can kind of see for yourself what kind of title this one is. So at the main menu, there's a few ways we can play the game. There's an arcade mode as well as some time trials you can participate in, but then there's the main meat of the game, which is more of a cinematic experience. You can either continue game, which will start you on the last stage you got to, or you can enter the level select. So the game will always start you on the last level you've got to, and since there's only 5 levels, if you've completed the game, you'll always start on level 5 if you pick continue game. For our purposes, we'll start with stage 1. Launching, you can kind of see that this game has some really great cinematics throughout the course, where you've got great shots of your ship itself, the enemies, and you kind of see this throughout all the various stages, specifically at the beginning and then around the boss fights. As far as our controls are concerned, so this is a standard horizontal scrolling shoot 'em up with some really great 3D visuals, so kind of like 2.5D basically. And as far as our ship's weapons, initially you start off with just a main shot that's relatively weak. And we also have a missile that you also begin with. So at this point, what you're looking at here is a fairly upgraded version of a playthrough. When you start the game, things will look a little bit more like what you see right now. So there's not a whole lot of firepower going on, your ship is relatively slow and clunky, and that's kind of, I guess, why I feel like the game just overall has a clunky feel to it. So back to our gameplay where we've got a little bit more of an upgraded ship. So at this point, this is kind of the loadout that I've come to favor. The options provide additional firepower, we've got a really effective missile, and as far as just coverage for your main shot, the spread is wonderful. And I really appreciate that there's that much customizability to it. We'll have a look at the armory, which is where you customize your loadout after we finish this stage. So we've made it to our first boss. As you can see, the boss's introduction was relatively cinematic as well. Here we've already taken off one of the ship's engines, and this point kind of highlights an issue that I have with some of the game design, where we've got parts where the enemies are basically in positions where we can't normally hit them because we can't move into background areas, or it's kind of hard to see background areas. As far as the options I have for this particular loadout, they can take damage themselves and be destroyed individually, and when that happens, you can pick up a health restore, which are green cubes that will restore your health as well as restore your options, so something to keep in mind. So after moving around the ship, we're coming back around to fight this boss, and we should be able to destroy the both the cannons that have been shooting at us on this side of the ship, as well as the I guess the launching platforms for the enemy ships. Coming across to the back, we take out the main cannon, take out the ship itself using our missiles, and boom, first boss destroyed. It is possible to finish that fight without destroying the boss. If you go through the second pass and you haven't destroyed the boss, then you'll just both go your separate ways, and that's the end of the stage. So that is neat that they included both potential outcomes. So here's one of the neat elements of the game itself. After you finish a stage, or if you happen to lose all your lives and get a game over, you get a summary of the overall objectives, goals that are present on the individual stages and your overall playthrough, that will both unlock additional weapons and give you upgrade points for those particular weapons. So in this case, we finished the top 2 objectives, getting 2 additional weapons, and there's all these other objectives that are present as well. So you can see here it gives you a summary of what you've unlocked. So we got the block, so one that will deploy shields around us, and then guided missiles. Pretty awesome stuff. So this is where I feel the meat of the game truly is the armory. And between stages you can go into the armory and we can see here everything that we could potentially equip. So one thing that's really neat is it's possible to upgrade every single weapon that we pick up. Although it takes upgrade points to do so, we gain those by defeating enemies and completing objectives. So each of these 5 weapons you can see here, these ones are our main guns. We also have the ability to upgrade and equip missiles. There's the tech bay, which is basically like our secondary weapon. I do have one equipped, but I always forget to go and use it. This is the ion blast. I like this one because it doesn't have as much of an ammo requirement as the other tech bay equipment. There's the outriders, which are basically our options. So I was using the ones that kind of provide additional firepower, but we've got ones that spin around us, both blocking shots and dealing damage. The one that I just unlocked, we can kind of see here how that would behave. This is the blocker. Not the best example there. There's also one for the shields and a couple more that I haven't unlocked. And last but not least, we have our ship upgrade. So here you can upgrade the number of lives you have per continue or run rather, health, and the ship's speed. So I highly encourage you to at least pick up one ship speed once you have the ability to do so, as it helps the game just feel like it's flowing at a much better pace. Alright, with all that taken care of, we can continue on with the next stage. So the overall flow of Hyper-5 is that you're going to be playing through the individual stages, and you'll be earning the points throughout the course of your gameplay that will ultimately result in you being able to pick up both complete objectives to pick up new weapons, and then earn the points to upgrade them. And through the course of your gameplay, you'll be able to better progress through and ultimately defeat the enemies that are thrown at you. For the first couple stages, things are relatively light and minimal, but by the end of stage 5, without some upgraded equipment on your ship, things actually do get quite difficult. And that is basically Hyper-5 served up for your enjoyment. I do really like the visuals that are present here. That 2.5D presentation is very much doing this game a lot of good favors. Oh, here's a yellow cube. This one will give us additional upgrade points. The upgrades and drops that you pick up are different though if you're playing in a different mode. So if you're playing in arcade mode, then the power-ups do behave differently as you start at a lower level and you build yourself up. So that's kind of a neat way to play and look at the game. Your score is lifetime cumulative, though if you're playing some of the other modes, you can earn points specifically related to those modes. So that's something that's a bit different, and I think kind of helps this game stand out. There's also online leaderboards, so something else to keep in mind. So there are some issues that I definitely feel the game has, though, and that kind of adds to that whole clunky feeling that I was talking about. So this stage is a wonderful example. We have all this terrain, and it's not always clear what we can impact into and what we can't. So my basic rule of thumb is that if your shots hit the terrain, then that you can take damage there. But in situations like this, you can't necessarily see that you can't hit this wall here, but if you do, once again, you take damage. And then we're good here, but not over every part of the stage itself. So that's just a little bit of a problem with the gameplay itself. The other big minus flavor I have is along those lines is some of the enemy shots are very difficult to see or separate from the surrounding environment, and doing so can sometimes lead to deaths not knowing what killed you, and that is something that I personally find quite frustrating. And then also, until you get your ship decently upgraded, it just feels like you're very slow and weak. So that's why I was saying first upgrade I would recommend, if you can, is upgrade your ship's speed. But on the plus side, I do really like all the upgrades that are available. Completing the individual objectives to unlock the different weapons is satisfying, and as is upgrading your weapons as well. You can notice the increase in power relatively easily, and that just makes you feel like it's worth it. And the overall mech design, your ship, the enemies, all of that I feel is really solid and makes for a good game. So this enemy here is one that I was talking about as far as the problem is concerned. He's got a Gatling gun, and it's difficult to go and see the shots that he fires, especially if you're firing something on top of that. So the first time I fought this boss, I ended up losing a life because I didn't realize I was actually getting hit by the enemy shots. So overall, my thoughts on this title are, I think it's an interesting title with some great art, some wonderful weapon customizability and unlocks, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it's an experience that I don't feel every even shoot 'em up fan needs to seek out. But if you are interested in it, there is the demo available on the PC, so you can go and look for that title. Alright, that'll just about wrap it up for this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.